Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on A World Awakening. We appreciate this gathering together every week. It means so much to me. It means a lot to my guests. Bill, my producer at KGRA, has been phenomenal. We are now broadcasting with, oh my God, brain dead. I'm brain dead. It's on Spotify. It's in all kinds of places, but Dead Air Full Spectrum is the network that we're on now, also known as the George and Ken Show. They built this, and it's wonderful, and I'm so happy to be a part of it. What a week I'm having. But then I could have said that last week as well. And I thought the very best way to end a tumultuous, emotional, enlightening, turbulent week would be to bring in a tornado whirlwind dervish, a whirling dervish of a guest tonight. And many of you know him, Reverend Timothy Shaw, Tim. A brilliant and beautiful soul, if one ever existed on the planet, and somebody that will leave us happy, joyful, uplifted, and inspired and hopeful about the future. Because if somebody this weird can be on this planet and manage to function and touch as many lives as he does with his high strangeness, then all things are possible. And with that, please welcome the Reverend Timothy Shaw.
Hello, beautiful. How are you? You know what? We are just so close in this little box. I could almost reach out and squeeze you. That's what I would love to do to you right now is just give you a nice big hug because you give the best hugs when we're together at these different cons and we're steaming around and doing all the insane stuff that we do.
We do.
My favorite thing is to look up. I'm usually in the Detroit airport someplace. That's usually my hangout.
Yeah.
And I'll be reading, and all of a sudden I'll feel someone walking by and she's staring at me. And I know it's Andrea, and I jump up and I always give her a great big hug because she's one of my favorite people. Do you remember? I was just telling somebody, do you remember when we met?
Yes, I do. It was in Atlanta.
Even before that.
Oh, we met before the Atlanta thing?
Gettysburg.
Gettysburg, that's right. Oh my God.
That's going back a few years. I still didn't have hair then, but yes, that's how far back it was. This was a little browner. I will admit that. But yeah, I always remember that because I always want, and you know what, everybody, it's funny because I'm a fanboy to certain people. There's only a couple people I'm a fanboy to. This lady, I am a huge fanboy of because I always remember I walked up to you and I was like, "Oh, hello, Andrea," and I was so tongue tied. There's only really, I had that effect. A person that affected me like that was the amazing Kreskin because I grew up watching him on TV, and to see somebody like that, he's like a childhood, he was a mentalist and. He brought all this ESP stuff into my brain when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the amazing Andrea Perrin, who I was like in love with. So that's where we met. That's how long ago. And then after that, we kind of stumbled into each other in Atlanta.
Yeah. And and you are right about us running into each other at the Detroit airport. That's happened a number of times. And it's strange because you'll say, I felt you before I saw you.
Always.
The same is true for me. I knew it's almost like, he's here somewhere. And I start scanning the crowd, and then our eyes meet and we come together.
And that's when I start singing. I start singing, tunes to you. And yes, we do dance. And you know what? I think that's the most fun of it because of the fact it's like we're dancing in the Detroit airport and people are just like kind of looking at us. Doesn't bother us in the least bit because you know why? It's so nice to be able to go and meet and hang out with such an advanced soul, and that's what's so great about it. We're first of all, we're both at the age. I'm a I'm a tad older than you, but uh it's so nice to be at that age where it's like I'm not going to worry about what people think. I don't care. I'm just, and I meet this lady and she's just like 100% love. It's all and it's just, and what I love about you is when I see you, I know it's genuine because I mean, let's face it, we hug 1,000 people and shake we kiss, you and I kiss a lot of kiss a lot of babies and shake a lot of hands when we're out there. And but I always know that it's you, when you and I just hang out, I know it's a real thing. So that's why I always loved you. You've always been really, really close to my heart. So you're just always been special.
Well, and I feel exactly the same way. And it really was, our meeting was really in many ways a reunion. I mean, I've
Yes.
never for one moment suspected that we weren't supposed to come together. In this roughly this time frame. I've known you for
Hmm.
close to 10 years.
Yeah. That's
So
hard to believe, isn't it?
I
I
know.
think I think about that now, and I mean, I think, wow, we basically stumbled into each other, but yet from the time we first met, it was as if we've always known each other. It's you're one of those souls that it's like, well, I mean, if you believe in past lives, and I do, I do, I believe that we somewhere along the line were,
Know each other. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
My belief system, well, I can't even say that I suspect. Let me say that I suspect that we're probably from the same planet.
oh yeah,
Uh,
I think so, I think so.
that we're probably here together at this time with some very specific purpose and reason. And I don't just feel that about you. I feel that deeply and profoundly about you. But I have other people that I have stumbled into quite unexpectedly that have altered my life. Lynn and Jeff Bowling, for instance,
Hmm. Oh yeah.
Greta Riefert,
Yep.
okay, the
Yep.
newest addition, Aaron Bush. I mean, people that have come into my life and
Hmm.
changed my life, enhanced, enriched my life, showed me the way, helped me through, myriad obstacles and challenges, gotten me from point A to point B, have, been there for me when I was in need, not just not just in my life and in my
Hmm.
experiences with my family and my friends, but in need in my soul when I needed somebody to fill that part of me and to reaffirm my faith and humanity. And all of you do that. All of you do that. Zaphis.
Oh,
Zaphis.
yeah.
Who
Yes.
ever thought Zaphis would be such an inspiration in my life? John Tenney has changed my
Tenny.
life.
Yes. Yes.
Everything. I love that man. Oh,
But here's a funny story. You know, so I had, as Andre knows, I had a cornea transplant. I went blind basically in my right eye. So I had, and it's the recovery is long, and if you're active like me, it's really tough. Do you know this lady texted me? I was sitting there feeling so damn sorry for myself because I couldn't do anything. You're not even allowed really to pick up a carton of milk, because
right,
of the pressure. And, I
right.
had 6 internal stitches in my eye and, this whole thing. So all of a sudden I'm sitting there in the living room, just kind of like, oh, this is brutal. I get a text from this lady out of nowhere, and she didn't know I was going in for surgery. And I get this text, and immediately, and I think you sent like a rose or a little smile or something, and immediately I just felt so much better. I'll tell you what, not 20 minutes later, Zaphis calls me up and says, "Did you watch this so and so show?" And you know how Johnny gets.
Yeah.
It was like the two of you got me on my lowest day, and you guys could like feel it. and that's why I think that we're always, and I mean, it's funny because just the other day I picked up my phone. I said, you know what? I don't know if she's thinking about me or what, but I got to send her a little text. And that's just the way we are. And it's so neat to be able to find people like that because it's like almost you step into each other's shoes.
Yes.
And to me, what I love about you, Ani, is Ani, I'm calling you Andrea, because my friend Ani is thinking of me. Andrea, what I love about you is the fact that you're so multifaceted. And what I love about it is the fact that we work together in one field, but then you go on and you're talking about, this galactic family and everything. And I am still like in this cobweb brain. I'm still in the 1950s through 1970s stage, so of learning. And I forget what event it was. And I said, well, I'm going to go listen to Andrea speak. And everybody else is going, oh, we're going to the bar. I said, no, I'll go. Listen, I
took the group outside. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I said, you know what? I said, I'll give up my Jamesons for a little while tonight. I'm going to go out. And after that, my brain just like cleared and I'm like, holy crap. I wasn't ready for it. And then we were talking, and then so many things made sense.
People are not. No, when I take them outside, they're not ready.
But the best one is, so at these events, everybody, they're so glamorous. Everybody, they're just so glamorous. So Andrea and I, we're loading on the bus at 5:30 in the morning to go to the airport to come home, and I mean, if anybody was ever in the military, it looks like the sick bus. You know what I mean? It looks like an ambulance full of people that are just slumped. Yeah. Andrea is talking about all these great interactions, and she's got photos, and I'm just like sitting there. All of a sudden, we're at the airport, and I'm like, huh? It's like, this isn't fair. We didn't get it, and that's the problem. I'm so interested with what you're speaking about, because I do feel that there's so much interdimensional play that's going on between the spiritual world and other worlds out there, and how we're influenced with it. And it's like, you and I never get a chance to really talk about it because of the fact that we are so much on the go. And let me tell you something. This lady is everybody loves her. I try to go. The only time I get a chance to see her is if I run up to her table, just push her father out of the way, and like, how are you, Ani? Andrea, are you doing? What are you doing? How you doing? How you doing? You okay? What do you need? And then it's like I have to go back to my table, because she has got lines. There's just lines all over the place because everybody loves her so much.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. I love doing the events. I find that you and I remember one night, my sisters were there. It was
oh, yes.
And it was, we were in that lounge area. Zaphis was there. You were telling stories of your past life that were just blowing my mind. We had been outside. We had some close encounters. I won't share any of them. I know, darling. Nothing. Your secrets are safe with me. And Zaphis was laughing so hard. I thought for sure he was going to need to run to a bathroom. I mean, the man was, remember, he was collapsing on the couch, laughing. And we were dancing and we were singing and we were raising hell. And my sisters were looking at us like, who are you people? That was the night that John called his wife Cheryl and wanted to know. Do you remember you were standing there? Called Cheryl and wanted to know if it would be okay if he came home with a few sister wives. And she said, well, and he said, they're Andrea's sisters. And she said, well, I don't know how Andrea is going to feel about that. You better ask her first.
Yep. Oh my God. Yeah. But you know what? It's such a community. And
It is.
you
It
know,
is
and
very loving,
oh my
bonded
God, it's
community of the
unbelievable.
most eclectic people. I don't think that any of us think or feel the same way or process information the same way. You've got your diehard investigators,
Yes,
you've got your
yes.
spiritualists, you've got your runes and stone people, you've got your healers, your Reiki masters, I mean,
Yep.
card readers and mediums, and Chip Coffee steps into the mix and all bets are off.
Off.
They're off. And it's just it is it always lifts me up and heals me from
Mhm.
whatever. I work a lot. I work really hard in this life. I've never not worked hard in my life, whether it was academically, or beyond that, from when I graduated from
Right.
college and then went out into the world. I've always paid my dues. I've put in my time, and everything that comes out of me now that you're used to hearing, and that whole side of me, that was percolating in my brain. It was not something that I talked about with a lot of people for decades.
Oh, yeah.
Decades. And then it started bubbling. It's like Vesuvius erupting. I don't know. I mean, when I wrote the trilogy of books, I didn't know if there was going to be anybody out there to read them. I didn't know what kind of interest there would be in a paranormal story. And I put my whole future on the line to do it. And it rewrote my history. I had a good job. I had a great little house to live in on a beautiful lake in Rhode Island. I could have just stayed there and lived there
Mhm.
happily ever after. And instead, I took a risk that
Well,
maybe somebody would want to know about this. And then there was a
yeah.
movie, and then there were documentaries, and then there was another feature, and then there was another feature. And it's
Isn't
like,
it amazing?
what happened?
Isn't it
What
amazing?
happened?
It's like the blessings flow, because I'm similar, I mean, I started really early.
Yeah.
Back in like early 70s.
Hmm.
That's when I first went to the spiritualist Sunday school, the
Mm.
lyceums,
Yeah.
and it was amazing because all of a sudden it's like all this prep work and everything has been in the back of your head and you hide it. It's like if you go one place, well, you can share it with some people. But in reality, you can't do that. And it wasn't until first of all, I got outed. You ever heard that story? When I
Yes.
when I got
Yes.
outed
Yes,
and no
I don't tell any of your stories. Only you get to. That way you decide what people can hear and what
well,
people cannot.
Well, it's funny because I worked in a blue collar job. I worked for a township, so I pushed asphalt and concrete my whole life.
Mhm.
So this folklorist asked me to come and do some readings, and I was pretty much under the radar. And a guy walks up to me and he says, "Hey, do you mind if I take a picture of you?" And I was bending spoons. We were doing the mentalist thing, the bending of the spoons.
Yeah.
And he goes, "You mind if I take a picture of you?" I said, "Oh, go ahead." I figured he was for like a local little tiny neighborhood magazine. It was and I live outside of Buffalo, New York, and it was for the big Buffalo paper, of course.
Uh-huh.
So my saintly mother called me the next day on Sunday morning at 8:30 in the morning, going, "Oh, look, you're on the full color photo of me," and it ended up in the union box, which you can't get into. And at the end of my workday, I got called into the union offices, and I'm like, "What did I do wrong?" And they said, "Well, listen, some people, they, some people think it's cool what you do, but half the crews that you work with, nobody wants to work with you now." And and that's the way it started. And you just and once it's out there, you can't pull it back
You
in.
can't
So I
pull it
mean,
back in. It's the genie out of the bottle. It's the Pandora's
it
box.
oh, it is,
It's
it is.
pried open and
But
everything has changed. Yeah.
but isn't it amazing? And then all of a sudden, I got picked up on the radio, and from the radio, I got picked up for different events, and then a few TV spots here and there. And now it's like I'm at that golden age where I'm evolving into yet another into another journey. And you sit there and you go, wow, how did this happen? And then you think to yourself, sometimes it's divine inspiration, sometimes it's otherworldly inspiration. And
Yes.
and people don't realize that as human beings, we are influenced, not just spiritually, but energetically. You know, you know, I'm a firm believer in, now here in Western New York, I have to tell you, in the last, it's not so much like we're in April, so it would be like the end of February.
Hmm.
We had a lot of UFO sightings, and I live near
No, yeah,
Lake Erie, but most of them are over Lake Ontario, and they always are over Lake Ontario between the U.S. and Canada.
yeah,
And it's amazing because all of a sudden people seem to be evolving, and you started talking to people, and they started thinking about more loftier things.
yes,
Then when they stopped, boom, it flatlined right out. It all went back into the drama and all this other stuff that's going on. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, and everybody's like going and saying, well, Mercury retrograde and all that stuff. I mean, and I know a lot of people don't really believe in it. And I'm not a huge believer in it, but I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, what's this correlation? Why during this UFO flap? And I taught an advanced mediumship class, and I just did it as a favor to a friend.
mhm,
Everybody in this class, so I think it was like 12 people, 12, it was 11 people in this class. Every single one of them excelled. It blew me away. Every one of them excelled. And I couldn't believe it because it was like, what's going on here? And they were all talking about getting this new inspiration. And now it's kind of calmed down. Luckily, they haven't. They're still at that peak. But I noticed more people are not being as inspiring and bringing this stuff to the table as it was during that time when we were starting to get more sightings. Now I'm hoping June comes around, because I know traditionally June can be a little bit busier here, talking about sighting wise, and then
mhm,
it flaps into the fall in our area. And what people, but the other thing I have to tell you is that I by February I had another bout of surgery, so I really
mhm.
couldn't get out as much as I wanted to. But we were able to get out to a small location, and during that time period, we got a lot of neat evidence. I mean, but most of it, I will say, was personal because of the fact of the shadow interaction and that sort of stuff. But I have to tell you this one. So February, so I'm exercising, right? I'm trying to, I'm doing my senior exercises, Andrea. I'm doing my chair yoga, my 10-pound weights,
Yeah,
which is like so
yeah.
embarrassing to me, but I'm doing it just to keep moving. So what I put on was a scanner. So I put a scanner on and I put it on a spirit box, to filter it out. And I've
Mhm.
worked with this one box for years. I've got a bunch of, you know how it gets. You get a pile of stuff.
Yeah.
Now I get this kind of weird feeling. The only way I can describe it was like it felt as if the energy around me
Had
changed just
changed.
a
Yep.
tiny bit, just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit.
It's a
And again,
fluctuation that you can actually, if you
yes,
really close your
physically.
eyes, you can physically feel it.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
It's a
Well,
vibration. Yeah.
so now keep in mind, I have I have a cadaver eye, partial cadaver eye in this, where they did the transplant.
Yeah.
So I'm listening to this chatter, 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 chatter. So I take a break and I said, "What's your name?" And the name Felix comes through, right?
Mhm.
I'm like, Felix. Well, I don't really know a Felix. And I'm thinking, well, do I know you? Andrea, a voice came below the frequency, the chatter of the box.
Mhm.
Below, sounded like it was on its own frequency. And
Yes.
when I said, "Do I know you?" within a couple seconds, it said transplant.
Oh my
Is
God.
and you know what? Okay, I'm gonna, if you want to be a skeptic, okay, it could have, but the first of all, it was on FM, so I mean, it's not like a lot of talk radio and FM radio, but it was so low and it just came through and it was crystal clear. And it wasn't like a chopped up word because it's got two syllables. It was one solid word. And I had been thinking about how am I going to honor this person? Because I know it was a gentleman that passed. He was 50 years old. And I mean, that's all they would tell me. And I thought, how am I going? And I had been thinking about this for a while. How am I going to honor him?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to do a little ceremony for him once the weather breaks a little bit warmer up here. But I'm going to do that just to honor him and to thank him for giving me this gift of sight back, and which is now 2030. Can you believe it? From nothing, from 2030. But
No, it's so great.
with my Coke bottles on, of course. But
Yeah.
you know what? Transplant. And I thought to myself, wow, not only is that spiritual, but it has to be something more than spiritual. It had to be something that really was, again, we were having the flap. We were having, more sightings. And it had to be, for some reason, I believe that these sightings and energetic personalities all converged right at the right moment. And I always tell people for hauntings or whatever, right person, right place at the right time. I believe it was the right time. And that single word came through. And I stood there and I got misty, I got teary eyed because I knew in my heart, I knew that this gentleman made contact, but also was able to go, and those on the other side and those that have come through at that time, allowing so much energy to be in this air and people to be so inspired to get that one word through. And I'm telling you, it was probably and you know me. I mean, I've slept in demon rooms. I've walked into by myself into buildings and walked into a shadow person that was like 6 inches from my face. I don't really things like that don't really
Easily.
they don't shake me.
Nothing
But
shakes you.
but that was amazing. I've only had contact like that poignant and that really solid once in my lifetime. And I have to say that this was my one peak experience. And if I stopped tomorrow, stopped everything, which I'm not going to do, but if I did, that would be it. That would be I could say, listen, that's what happened to me. That is a true peak experience that I can't explain. And I am still at that point in my life where it's like, wow, how did that happen? Where did that come from?
Yeah.
So that was amazing.
It's such a blessing for both of you. A piece of him lives on in this world. And wouldn't it be such a blessing if he could continue to see the world through your eyes?
Which might be scary.
Which, no, but wouldn't it be informative too, and what an adventure for him. But he let you know that
Right.
he lives on in you. And I
Yeah.
think that's an absolutely beautiful, beautiful sentiment, and a connection that will be lifelong.
Yeah, it
It
will be.
absolutely will be lifelong.
And of course, my long-suffering wife, Nancy, she puts up with so much with me. So the day after I have the surgery, and it's brutal because you have to lay 24 hours on your back and you got to stare up and you can't move. And the first 24 hours is terrible. And then you go to the doctor and they remove all the packing and everything. So they check stitching and there's an air bubble that holds it perfectly in place underneath it. That's the poor doctor, and this guy's the head of the transplant department, and he says to me, or Nancy says to him, let me ask you this. Do you think he's going to get any kind of visions or anything like parts flashes from this guy's life? And I give this guy so much credit because he stopped. thought about it for like 2 seconds and said, I don't think so, because there's not a lot of there's no major blood vessels going to it, like in like your heart or your liver or something where they transplant it. So he goes, I don't think so, but hey, you never know, And Nancy goes, wouldn't that make a great book? And I thought, oh God, here we go.
Oh, here we go.
I'm like this, honey. I just want to go home, please. You know what? I want to take my headache, and I just want to go home, and I want to be able to like eat my life away, But yeah, it's just to me, Andrea, I'm telling you, it was the right time, right place, and it was just amazing. And to have that single voice, and it was a male voice that came through, no mistaking it, solid. I mean, solid, where it was no like cracky, scanner,
Right.
gibberish sometimes.
Absolute clarity. I understand. It just happened to me a few weeks ago. I walked into my mother's bedroom at 2:30 in the morning. I had the hallway light on. I could see her face. She was sound asleep. She had her oxygen all hooked up, and she was sound asleep. And I stepped over the threshold into my mother's room, and I heard, "Hello," just like that. And I couldn't recognize the voice. I don't know if it was my sister April. I don't know who it was. With one word, it was very difficult to discern, but it was clear, it was succinct. There was I thought perhaps Christine was up and in the room, and I didn't see her in the dark. Like, checking tubes or, whatever. I mean, we check on mom a lot during the night, and no, Chris was sound asleep in her bed, but somebody was in there watching over my mother, and that brings me great comfort.
Isn't it wonderful?
It's
Isn't it
wonderful.
wonderful? And I mean, and as we talked before, I'm doing a lot of research into the whole death doula traditions, and I do know some, and we do know a nurse that worked with hospice, and it's amazing when we start looking at this stuff and we start analyzing it. First of all, you can't really analyze it, but when you start hearing about it and you understand what is going on and why they reach out, or why they're talking, or maybe these people, and it's almost always have passed that they're talking about and they're talking to. And that to me always gives me such great hope. One of the best ones is Nancy. I had asked her mom shortly before she passed, gee, has dad come to visit? She goes, yeah. And I told him, get going, I'm not ready yet. So,
and it's just that, Tim, it's the anecdotal evidence. It's the stories that we tell each other of the experiences that we have and that we share. And we trust each other enough to be able to have these conversations because we don't give a damn if anybody thinks it's weird or not. It's our stories, our truth. We speak our truth to each other, and we congregate in these paracons where everybody's about as different as they could be, but we all share this love of learning about what comes in the afterlife, and our stories are the anecdotal evidence of an afterlife.
Yes, I agree. And I mean, and here's a lot of people will, and again, skeptics will turn around and say, well, that's your brain dying and all this other stuff.
Right,
And
right.
but I can't buy it. I have problems buying it, because not just because I'm a medium. Don't get, I mean, a lot. I don't put a lot. To me, to be mediumship is like putting on my socks, because I've done it for so long, and
it's just normal. It's not paranormal.
And my, and I can trace the lineage back to 1880 in my family. So I've always been exposed to it. But when you get something where they're talking about their dog when they were younger, and something that the dog did, and then they start talking about uncles, and they talk about people that they really liked, and these people that were really, or they really had a great connection with, and you see that, and you understand that the bridge is there, and the bridge is open. And I often wonder, is sometimes like our galactic family, and I love that term. That to me, that's the most beautiful term that I've ever
It
heard, because it covers so much. And I think to myself, well, when I was younger, I asked what the afterworld looks like, and they showed me an oscilloscope. So that just meant that we are frequency and we are energy. But we start talking about beings from other worlds. What are they in the basis when you start thinking about this? Let's break it down. I'm sure they are frequency and they are energy. And I believe
and
that
consciousness.
they, yeah, the pure
Together we have
consciousness.
conscious contact. It's
Yes,
cosmic
yes,
conscious contact. And what it is just being so open to not only who you are, but so open to their existence. I mean, here's the fact of the matter. There's nothing to fear here. They're so
I
far advanced
agree.
that
I
that
agree.
they wanted to enslave us. I mean, other than what would they've done to us with cell phones, I would not consider us enslaved, uh, except for cell phones. Um, and if they wanted to claim this planet for whatever reason,
They
all of
could
it,
have already they could have already done it several times over.
and so that's not, and there's a reason why. And there's a reason why I've always referred to them as our galactic family, because I truly know on some level we are related and we are like their children. They look over
Agreed.
us, they love
Agreed.
us, they watch us, they may have look at the diversity of humanity on this
Mhm.
planet. I think it's entirely plausible that the human race is an amalgamation of different races that have been, and that, Darwin had a great idea, but in, based on what we have learned about their existence and the lies that we've been told for the last 75 years about their uh, ability to visit us,
Yeah.
and our government told the truth once and only once, and they retracted it immediately. And so, consequently, because of one front page article written 75 years ago, roughly, um, it has become the worst kept secret in the course of human history. But if you go back into, as I know you have, you're very much the scholar, you know that there have been references made to extraterrestrials throughout the course of human history, as long as there's been a language to record things in. And so this is, and the same is true of
Mhm.
ghosts and spirits. The exact same
Exactly.
thing is true all the
Now,
way to the Bible.
Andrea, think about it this way. I just had my friend is a retired anthropologist. He was Professor Philip Ainsley, and he's a great friend of mine.
Oh, I know that name.
Well,
I'm
he's
sure
a
I read something from.
I'm sure you've heard of him. And we were talking about the crypto UFO phenomena. I mean, there's so much evidence that the two are interrelated.
Yes.
But but true experiencers also experience paranormal phenomena, whether it's because whether it's in here, or it's external phenomena that they repeatedly experience throughout their life. It's all interrelated, and this is what I don't understand. I have to tell you, I don't understand the division
Mhm.
between everything, because
Well,
like,
there is none. It's an
well, there
illusion.
isn't. We
Right.
and I'm
We're the
going to say
ones that
general, we're the
impose
ones that are breaking it up,
we
because
superimpose it
yes,
on the whole, to try to break
agreed,
it up into
agreed.
parts, as though, life is nothing but a series of spare ribs that have been cut through and that separated, but it's all the same rack of ribs.
Exactly. I agree. And I think, we were talking again. my little group is called we nickname ourselves the AARP Paranormal because we're all retired. We're almost all retired. We don't. It's like
They'll
nobody.
sue your ass for that. I'm telling you right now, they will.
That's why we're not like copywriting anything.
Better not, because they'll
we don't
sue
have
you.
t-shirts. We don't have t-shirts with it on. But I mean, we joke. This is our joke. And we thought we were talking about why everything is so fractionated out there. Metaphysics, along with religion and some spirituality. You got paranormal, you've got crypto, and then you've got ufology. And we were trying to figure out why there has been no serious advances in the last 10 years. Really, there hasn't.
No, that's not true.
No. The reason I'm saying that is because what's happening is because everybody is so like myopic in what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They're not seeing it. They're not gestalting the whole problem. They're not looking at it.
Yes, yeah. I see what you're saying now.
And when we sit down, I firmly believe when we sit down and not get so crazy on just one topic, when we open our thinking and we really open our thinking to allow everything into us, that the possibilities are endless, everything is so interconnected, I think that's when we, as a group, as a species, will really see something marvelous happen, and that's when that big push is going to happen. And I keep hoping, and I keep hoping, and I said to them, I said, I hope it happens like at least in my lifetime. I'm hoping that like people are starting to see it, and everybody goes like this. I said, does that mean that like I'm going to die soon, or does that mean that it's not going to happen? They're all like this. Keep eating pizza, Tim. Keep eating that stuff that you eat. But that's the whole thing, Andrea. I really, when I go and I talk to people, I want them to embrace everything that's out there. And the reason there's also a selfish reason involved in there, because what happens is people get too wrapped up in the social aspects of everything, and they lose that childlike wonderment of. And I believe that childlike wonderment is a direct gift from the galactic family and from energetic personalities to us.
Yes.
And only when we have that childlike wonderment of what's going on, that inquiry of what's going on, then we can break everything down and look at it as a whole. And that's what I strive, and that's what I keep telling everybody, and I keep talking to them blue in the face, and I get some people that are very, very interested, and then I get like one or two that are going, well, it's time for you to go and eat your pudding with old man Zaffis or something.
If you encounter somebody that gravitates to what you are saying, but then is reticent, reluctant, seemingly rejects some notion of it, it's because you have struck a nerve.
True,
and what
yeah.
you've done is caused them to have to reconsider their own belief system.
True.
And
True.
because you just expanded their
True.
mind, and that's, they were working from this, and now they're out here, and that's very uncomfortable. It's very difficult, and
You're
it's
right
very
about that.
easy to say, I don't believe in that, because it threatens to fracture their own existing belief system. And that is such a visceral and internalized thing that they might not even be aware of the reason why they're reacting the way that they are, because it challenges everything that they've built that's their whole foundation, and everything is built upon it. And you just kicked or pulled a couple of bricks out of the foundation and caused it to become a little unstable, and forced them to think about things that are uncomfortable for them.
Yes.
And
yes.
So
yes.
when somebody, I've never heard it put to me quite this way, but I don't believe in ghosts. My smart ass response is, well, they believe in you. But, then I say, that's fine. You don't have to believe in ghosts. I'm not here to convince you of anything.
Ex-
I'm
I
actually,
agree.
I'm positing what I put out into the world based on my own personal experience. You can accept it or you can reject it. You can react to it however you want to react to it. But if you have like experiences, if you've been touched by spirit in your life, you're going to gravitate to people like you and me because you know that you're going to meet somebody who is pure of heart, who has had these experiences that has been fundamentally altered, and will look them in the eye when they tell you their deepest, darkest, truest story
Hmm.
and say, I believe you. And that is everything. That rewrites
True.
their personal history. So we're not here for every single person. And yet, in a way, we really are, Tim, because in the same way that you can't watch a TV show and not retain some image from it, it some way
Hmm.
changed your thought process or pattern, and you'll remember that you saw that show. Oh yeah, I saw that episode of Ghosts. That was hysterical. You'll remember it rather than, oh, I haven't seen it yet. I don't know what happened. Don't spoil it for me. And that's kind of like how life unfolds. It's a process of experiences, and when you're brave enough, when you have the personal courage to, for instance, tell the story that you did tonight about a single word that transformed you in that
Hmm.
moment, transplant. You knew who it was coming from, where it was coming from, why it came to you. It was an identifying marker for a permanent bond that now exists between you and that man. And it is absolutely beautiful. It is nothing to be frightened of or made uncomfortable by. It is actually a blessing, not a curse. It is that rare and precious glimpse into the realm from which I think we come and will inevitably return.
I agree. And I mean, I have to say that I was lucky because I was exposed to a sighting
Mhm,
back in the 1970s. Remember when the big flap hit and
mhm,
it was all across the US, it was across the world.
mhm,
And up until that time, I had been because I was brought up Roman Catholic too. So I was, had been
mhm.
going to a Roman Catholic school. And then, during the summer, I'd be, you know, in and out of the Lilydale Spiritualist Assembly in Western New York
I'll
here.
be there this summer. I'm going to Lilydale for the first time.
I'm an hour away, so I'll be there. I'll show you where I used to ride my bicycle into the lake and how I used to ride through groups of tourists and knock them and make them scatter as I came down these hills as
Nice,
one of those kids. But
charming behavior.
but you know uh, back then the or religious organizational body that I belonged to was very dogmatic, and
Mhm.
spiritualism is not really shouldn't be really dogmatic. But I mean,
Right.
it came that way because of the Segway Committee and all that stuff that happened in the 20s and 30s. But uh I was really imprinted where I wasn't really looking forward. I couldn't see the world for what it was, only for what I had been taught. And I remember looking up the one time, and it just blew my mind because what I saw was there above me, and then it just made a Z, like a Z pattern, and then disappeared. And at that point, that just blew away all
Yeah.
this hardcore dogma that I had gone and I had absorbed. And then of course the Roman Catholic dogma that I had, because that was all very, very rigid. And because I was brought up in that time of still when we still use Latin,
Yes.
before Vatican
Yes.
II
I
would
learned. I
kick
studied Latin. Yes, I did.
"O sacrum convivium in qua Christus sumito." I still remember that stuff, but it's amazing that from that point on, all of a sudden, slowly, my mind started to open up to it. And slowly I became more accepting of and I became more accepting of other people and traditions and that sort of thing too. But all of a sudden it just was not like myopic. I opened up to the possibilities of all of this that went on. And having that experience had really taught me that if we don't open our minds to every possibility out there, entertain them, weigh them, and see if they fit somewhere, then we're doing a huge disservice to ourselves. And a lot of people go, well, I don't have time to think like that.
Oh,
Well,
yes, you do. Make the time.
everybody's got time to think like that.
That's right. I have to tell everybody before we go, we're just about flat out of time here. But I
That was
want to
quick.
I know, very quick, but we can pick up where we left off because I'm doing your show next week.
Tuesday, yes.
Tuesday. So what we'll do is we'll put you on all my social media. I got the people to do it. And we'll just kind of pick up where we left off. And I want to thank you so, so, so much for joining me tonight. What a pleasure, what a privilege, always an honor and a joy to be in your company. I truly love you. And I will see you. I'll talk to you this weekend and I'll see you on Tuesday.
We'll see you on Tuesday. Love you.
Love you. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on A World Awakening tonight. Have a wonderful weekend and bless your hearts and souls. Be the light you seek. Good night.